Have you ever really stopped to wonder about your own story? I mean, not just where you were born or who your parents are, but the real origin of you. Today, we're going to unpack a few verses from an ancient poem, Psalm 139, that gives us this just radical perspective on our identity, our value, and our purpose. So, let's dive in. You know, the search for meaning, for who we are, so often starts with this exact question. We tend to look to our family history, our culture, maybe our list of accomplishments to define ourselves. But what if our story started way before any of that? What if the real beginning is far more intentional and way more personal than we could ever imagine? So, the first big idea we bump into here is this huge shift from seeing God as some distant, all-powerful force to seeing him as an intensely personal, intimate creator. And this isn't just about theology. You'll see it's really about artistry. What's so cool is how the psalm itself is structured. The first half is all about God's cosmic, mind-blowing attributes. He's all-knowing, he's everywhere at once, but then it's like the camera dramatically shifts focus. It zooms in from these abstract facts about God to the incredibly profound personal reality of being known. And not just known, but actually made by him. I mean, just listen to that language. It's the language of a craftsman, of an artist. Knit me together. The original text really paints this picture of God intricately weaving or even embroidering us into existence, like thread by thread with this incredible care and precision, almost like a master artisan creating a totally one-of-a-kind tapestry. So what does all this beautiful poetic language actually mean for us? Well, it boils down to a few incredible truths. It means you are not an accident. You are an intentional masterpiece. Your value isn't something you have to go out and earn. It was assigned to you before you ever took a breath. And this points to a really key idea from the text. You are your own person, not just a biological extension of your parents. Your deepest, truest roots are in divine creation. Okay, so if that wasn't enough, this idea of intentional creation gets taken to a whole other level. Seriously, this next part is kind of mind-bending. Just pause and let that one sink in for a second. Before day one of your life, your entire story, every single day you would live, was already written down. This suggests your life isn't just a random series of events, it's a story authored by a loving creator. And the implication of that is just so powerful. Your life is not random. It's not just a string of lucky breaks or bad luck. According to the psalmist, there is a narrative, a plan that began long before you did. It's amazing how this ancient text speaks directly to some of our biggest, most complex modern questions, right? People ask, when does life begin? The psalmist says, God saw your unformed body. Or, when does a person gain value? The psalmist says, your days were written down before you even lived one of them. The message is just crystal clear. You were seen, you were known, and you were valued from the absolute beginning. And get this, it's not like God just created you and then walked away. The psalmist says that God's thoughts toward him are more numerous than all the grains of sand on all the beaches in the entire world. This isn't just about a past act of creation. It's about a continuous, moment-by-moment, loving focus on you. Okay, so if all this is true, if you really believe you're an intentional masterpiece, known and valued from before time, what do you do with that? How in the world are you supposed to live? Well, the psalmist gives us a really clear two-part response. After thinking about his own miraculous creation, he doesn't just, sit back in awe. He actively decides on two things. First, a firm, decisive separation from evil, and second, this courageous, radical openness to God. All right, let's talk about that first response because I'm not gonna lie, it can sound a little jarring. He actually uses the word hate, and that can come across as aggressive, maybe even a little self-righteous. So what's really going on here? The key here is getting the motive right. This isn't about an emotional, personal hatred for other people. It's a principled stand, a separation from evil itself, all out of loyalty to God. And what's really fascinating is that it's not an act of self-righteousness, but pretty much the exact opposite. It's an act of self-preservation. It comes from a place of recognizing his own weakness and his own vulnerability to being pulled in by that evil. And that leads us right into his second response, and honestly, it's one of the most vulnerable and beautiful prayers in the entire Bible. He doesn't cower in fear of this all-knowing God. No, instead he trusts him. He trusts him like a patient trusts a skilled surgeon, basically inviting him to come in, examine his innermost self, and remove anything that's causing harm. So he breaks it down into 4 requests. First, he says, "Search me," an invitation for God to see his heart. Then, "Test me," a willingness to have his motives tested and refined. Third, "Reveal me," a really brave request to see the faults that he can't even see in himself. And finally, "Lead me," a total commitment to follow God's path, his everlasting way. So, let's bring it all home. What does all of this mean for you and me right here, right now? Well, it completely reframes our entire understanding of who we are. This whole passage leaves us with 3 huge, life-changing takeaways. First, your true identity is ultimately found in your Creator. To really know yourself, you first have to know Him. Second, this gives you a whole new motivation. Trying to live a good life out of a sense of duty is exhausting, right? But living it from a place of trust is empowering. And third, it invites us into this bold kind of prayer, the courage to be completely, totally open with the one who made you, trusting that He is for you. Ultimately, the message of this psalm is like a declaration over your life. You are not a cosmic accident. You are not just some random collection of cells. You are a poem. You are a masterpiece, intentionally and wonderfully woven into existence by God. And so, I'll just leave you with this question. If you really, truly believed that you are a masterpiece, not a mistake, what changes? How would you see yourself? How would you treat others? How would you live your life tomorrow?